This time I've got a little Emerson combo VCR TV. I found this at the recycling center when I was taking in a flat screen, and the guy said just take it in the back and put it in the back, and it was this little 14-inch combo sitting there. It looked to be in pretty good shape. I thought, well, I'll just trade him and take this one and see what's wrong with it. So let's get this one up on the bench and see what's wrong. I don't know anything about it. I don't know whether it works. I don't know what it does. I suspect it doesn't work, but you never know. Let's just plug it in and see whether it does anything first of all before I get into it. Power, where's power? Okay, let's turn this one on and see if it works. Okay, we have no vertical on this one, so there's our problem. This should be relatively straightforward, I think. Let me just pull this one apart and we'll take a look at it and see where the problem in the vertical circuit is. Hopefully fairly straightforward. It could be a bad IC, it could be a bad connection, or a capacitor that's bad. Screws come out and the back slides off. Careful when you're removing the back of CRTs to not drop the back onto the neck of the picture tube, or you'll be buying a new picture tube. Actually, you won't be buying a new picture tube, you'll be throwing it out because you'll never get a new picture tube. And this set is made by Funai. Let's get a look at the circuitry on here before I dive into it. We'll analyze the different sections of circuitry. So this one has a switching power supply. Right there is the transformer. This will be the chopper transistor for it. That means this has an isolated chassis, unlike a lot of them, and it has to, because it has not only RF input, but it also has AV inputs on the front, so it needs to have an isolated chassis. Like this for Canada only. Replace safety critical components only with manufacturer's recommended parts. Refer to service literature. So if it's in the States, you don't have to replace them with manufacturer's parts. You can just use any parts, I guess. Because in Canada, we require special safety parts. VCR section here, this is all one board. Some of the earlier machines, they actually had a separate board for the VCR, and it was a separate piece. This is all in one. This is our yoke plug right here, so we know that the deflection is going to be in this area here. This will be the horizontal output transistor that drives the flyback transformer that generates the high voltage for the picture tube and for other circuits that require higher voltage, mainly the picture tube, because the lower voltages should all come off of this, but they might derive the vertical sweep from here as well, depending on the design. And I'm going to guess that this is the vertical output IC right down here on this side. Our chroma circuits over here. Here's the color burst crystal for that. The tuner over here. The degaussing plug plugs in over here. I'm going to get my, because this TV's in nice shape, I don't want to scratch it or anything, I'll put the mat down and turn the TV onto its face, and we can get a look at the bottom of the board and just give it an inspection. Here's our vertical circuit right here. Now it could be capacitors that have gone bad, but it also could be just a bad connection. I didn't want to tap it when it was running. Like normally what I would do is I would flex the board and stuff to see, bang on the board when it's running. But I don't want to keep this straight line on the screen any longer than I have to, because when you lose vertical deflection, it can really burn quick into phosphorus. So before going down that road, I just want to give this an inspection and see if I can notice any connections that look bad. And some of these connections right in here don't look good. See the crack right around there? I bet you that's where our fault is. See that? Just gonna find something to point with, like a screwdriver. But that sure looks like that's cracked. Same with this one. Yeah, that's cracked, that connection. You can see it for sure. I bet you that's all that's wrong with this set. I bet you that's all that's wrong with this one. Let me get my soldering iron going here. We'll reflow that connection and anything else in the vertical circuit that looks like it might not be up to snuff. Probably redo the flyback looks okay up here. I'm just okay, let's just reflow that IC. My iron is up to temperature now, or are pretty close to temperature. Bloody hot day today, I tell you. It's like, it's about 30 degrees in the shop here. There's my thermometer. Well, 28. Well, it's getting there. Feels like 30. I got the fans going. I got the ceiling fan going. I got this fan beside me going. And when I get this set going, I'm going to go back into the house where there's air conditioning and hang out there. Took my Harley out today for a ride, but you know, it's just too hot to ride. It was like riding in a sauna. I figured, what the hell? You know, I used to like riding it, but not when it's this hot. 15 to 20 is good, but when it's like 25 or 26 out, plus the heat off the road and the engine, it's just uncomfortable. And plus the fact that my bike's decided to have a problem and it stalls every time I let the throttle off. Right? There's another one over here that looks like it's kind of questionable. Hand the camera over it. Here's another one right down here. That looks. Where was it? This one here. I just touched that with my arm. That one there looks like it's a little bit bad too. Going to give the board a once over and just look for any other ones, but that one on the IC here definitely was bad. And there goes the phone. Okay, so let's just try this now. After resoldering the vertical drive IC, let's see if I get the vertical back. Setup. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, we got our deflection back. Let me just hook up a cable to this unit and we'll do an auto program. So my tuner's on the back here. How do I work this thing? Oops. Auto preset. Okay, let's try this. How do I do this? Okay. Where's the color? I just noticed that my little CRT has gone out that displays the time. I just noticed that little CRT up there that normally displays the time is off. Wonder what happened to that. I guess that's something else I'll have to address. I was just kind of using my little black and white CRT because I really didn't have any other use for it, just to display the time off my time generator. And I'll get it on this TV here as well. It's on one of the I think it's on a mid-band channel, like channel 17. This has got to go through all the channels. Okay, so there we go. Okay, that works. That works. Is there sound? Yeah.
Your print was photographed.
Yeah, that one's frozen. It's an off-air signal. It's frozen again. My cameras. Oscar Peterson. Auxiliary, and then back to the main menu. Okay, so this works. Let's try a tape. Let's see whether this thing. Let's try recording a tape. Put a tape in here. Hit record. record the fish here for a minute. That's my aquarium, in case I haven't mentioned it before. Back when it actually looked nice. It doesn't look anything like that now. All the corals are all gone because the lighting failed on it. When you have live coral, you have to have very strong lights, big high pressure metal halide bulbs, and the problem is the manufacturers, because the metal halide lamps all contained mercury, the manufacturers of them stopped making the lamps, and they want everybody to go to LEDs. When I looked at an LED fixture for the size of aquarium that I have, it was like $4,000, and it's like, you think I'm spending $4,000 for LED lights, which apparently they don't last that long either. You know, it's like, no, I'm not going to spend $4,000 on an LED light. So my lights got weak, they didn't put out enough UV, and my coral all died on me. But I had it for a number of years, and it was a showcase tank, and I'm just letting the fish, I'm down to 2 fish now. One of them is a clownfish, and another one is a chromis. So I think that one's still around. But down to 2 fish. I didn't realize that these fish can live like 35 years. So like I've had this one since I set the tank up in, what year did I set the tank up? 2008, I guess? Or was it before that? No, it was before that. I set the original, this tank I set up in like 2008. But I had a smaller tank prior to that I set up in probably 2004. But some of these marine fish can live for an awful long time, and that's what they don't tell you when you set up an aquarium. They don't tell you, if you're setting up marine fish, that if you look after them, they can outlive the owners in some cases. Okay, so let's try this playback and see whether this is recorded. Oh, wasn't interesting. It shut off. Now that might have been a setting too. Okay, that was interesting. It stopped there, but it did rewind. It's on repeat play. There's playback. Well, that's the end of the recording. Did it not rewind? Oh, there it goes. And go back to play. That was what was on the tape before. And there it is. It's playing back. There's sound. Probably wouldn't hurt to deal with the mode switch on this unit. This one's actually quite easy to get to, and to clean it properly, to take it all apart and clean it, I could pull the whole chassis out, but to tell you the truth, I really don't feel like spending that much time on this thing because it appears to be working. I can get to the mode switch, it's right here. I can actually get the cleaner into the mode switch without having to remove it. Just give it a shot. That should, I would think, keep it clean enough. I don't know if this thing's ever going to get used, so I don't want to take it apart too much and risk doing any other damage to it. So I'm just going to get into the switch here, give it a shot of cleaner, and then we'll run it through its paces a few times. I guess I got to get out of this. Turn it off and back on to get out of that menu, I think.
I think it's getting worse. I may have to take this mode switch out and clean it or repair it.
Okay, now what's wrong with it? What's it doing? Is my belt slipping by chance? This is the loading belt over on the side here. I'm going to need to clean the mode switch on this one, so that requires removing the chassis from the set itself. So we can pull the chassis out. There should be a little catch that holds it in place. The whole chassis will pop out. Now there's a catch down here, one on each side. You just have to pop these up, or pop them down. One of the two. Unplug the speaker first. After releasing the catches, you can pull the board out. I've disconnected the CRT, obviously, just so that I don't have to worry about putting any stress on it. The high voltage lead is long enough, and the chassis should be able to sit here without much to worry about. You gotta pull the deck. There's a couple screws on here to lift the chassis out. The mode switch is right down directly below here. Might be safer if I lay the set over on the tube, just so it doesn't tip over while I'm working on this. One thing that always concerned me with these small sets like this is because the tube itself is quite front heavy, so without the weight of the chassis on the back, you just bump it and it could fall over. So I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So disconnect everything except for the ground strap. That way there's nothing that's going to pull on the tube, and I can work on the VCR section separate. These machines were always kind of a pain in the ass to work on. That's why nobody liked working on these combo units, because to do any work to the VCR, you had to tear apart the whole TV. Getting hotter in here today now. I think this will lift out, or is there a screw on the bottom that holds this in here? I know it's got some tight ribbon cables on here, so it makes working on these things kind of a challenge. But I'm just going to try to lift this up enough so that I can pop the mode switch apart so that I can actually clean it properly. I should be able to pop this open. I think I got all the screws. No, there's another one on the bottom here. It goes in from this side. There's two of them. One here. And there's another one over here that hold the board down to the chassis. So you got to remove those as well. If you try to remove the chassis without removing those screws, you'll be in for a shattering experience. I think I've got them all. There might be one more. So let's just see if this will lift up. I think I've got it. Nope, there's one more. There's one more in the back here. Okay, again, I only want to lift this up high enough so that I can get to the mode switch, which is right down here. So this is the mode switch right there. It's keyed, so it only goes in one way. You can see the notch on there. That goes into a hole in the bottom of the gear. And basically, I just need to pop it apart so I can get some cleaner in there and clean it up. So if I pop it open with a screwdriver, I should be able to pop off the top and leave the rest of it in place like that. Now I can clean the contacts that are in here and clean the top of the switch, which is this piece here. So we'll spray some Neutral into the switch. And then I'll get a Q-tip in there, or cotton bud, or whatever the hell you want to call it. And we'll just clean it up. And as you can see, there's a fair bit of dirt and grime and oxidation on the switch. We'll do the same for the contacts here. I'll just put some Neutral onto the end of the Q-tip, and we'll use this to clean these contacts. Make sure there's no any lint or anything from the Q-tip left over in the switch. Sometimes it'll catch on the actual little contacts here. You don't want to leave anything behind, that's for sure. It could cause future problems. Make sure it's clean. Of course, that's the switch there. It's hard to see on camera, but there it is there. Now we'll put the switch back together. It just pops together, and we'll spin it around a few times just to make sure that everything is good. We'll just
I noticed when I went to turn it clockwise that it's hanging up a bit. So I got to inspect that and see why the switch is hanging up when I turn it clockwise.
I like the sound of that when it goes past that position. It's like it's catching on something. And pop it apart again, take another look at it.
It almost looks like the bottom of the switch is falling apart. I'm going to have to remove this switch and give it a closer inspection and see if we can fix it.
I was thinking it's just the mode switch is dirty, but the mode switch is actually broken. There's a piece here that of the plastic back here that on this contact has shifted, and it's allowing the contacts to catch. So I'm going to have to try to glue this piece back in, because I don't know I'd ever be able to find a switch like this. But I think if I was to put some glue in the back here to hold that little piece that's come loose back in place to hold the switch together, it might hold. So let's get some glue and glue this in. Probably just put some epoxy in here to fill this void and hold this piece together. Other than that, that's about the only thing I can think of that might work for this, other than trying to find another switch. I'm sure I probably could find a switch if I were to look. KP Components likely has one, but do I want to spend any money on it if I can fix it? If I can fix it without cost, I'll fix it without cost. So I did look up the mode switch, and they don't have it available locally, which I didn't really expect that they'd have this particular one, but we'll put some epoxy on the back here just to fill in the gap. Might as well put it all the way around the switch for that matter. Keep any other pieces from falling in. I'll let this set up and see how the switch goes back together and see if it runs smoothly. Because when I was turning it around, I felt it kind of hanging up. That might have been why the machine was jamming once in a while. Not so much that the switch was dirty, but just the fact that the base of it, plastic base, is falling out. So we'll fill that, and hopefully that will help the switch push these plastic pieces back into place that are a bit loose. See if that'll fix it. Alright, so I've got the epoxy in the back of the switch. Hopefully the front of it's going to be good enough. It's not going to hang up on anything. Put the switch back together. See, when I was turning it around to the right, it was kind of catching. So make sure that it turns okay without hanging up. There, that's a bit better. It was kind of catching before. Alright, let's just try remounting this thing. And fingers crossed it'll work. There's not a lot of room to work in here, and to remove the chassis would mean undoing some soldered in flex cables, which I really would rather not do. These funais can be a real pain in the ass to work on. You gotta work in a very confined space unless you want to disconnect a bunch of soldered on headers and connectors, which I don't want to do that. So switch back down in there, and then solder it back in place. Better solder it before I try to put the pin back through it, otherwise it might move it. A lot more work than I anticipated when I started on this. I thought it was just going to be that vertical problem, but as I say, this one's got multiple problems, although the VCR did work initially. That's one. At least it won't move now. Alright, the mechanism drops back in over top of the loading or the mode switch. Put the screws back in to hold the chassis in place. And I can test it out once I get the chassis reinstalled. Outside the chassis, and I got to hold the door open in the front for the lid lifter to line up properly. Drop in. There's a couple of catches on the front that drop into place, and then the chassis should just lock in like that on both sides. Now I can plug in the yoke and the CRT socket, speaker, and the degaussing connector. And the ground for the CRT, and then
oh crap, that's the sound no one wants to hear when working on a picture tube.
Plug the speaker in at the front here. You know, I just thought why this thing might have been doing some weird things when I had it apart was because the optical sensors are right here, and they're picking up light from inside the shop. That might have been what was giving me some weird operation with it apart. I didn't think about that. The mode switch probably didn't need to be taken apart.
Although it was falling apart, so...
Well, we'll see whether I made it worse or better. I guess we'll find out pretty quick. That mode switch fell apart when I cleaned it. Is it going to play? I guess I gotta get out of this menu first. And it plays. And I'll turn out the lights in here just so that it won't affect the sensors on the back. When I was changing mode, I'll just kill some lights. Alright. It's playing. I've got sound, stop, rewind. That works. Fast forward. Yeah, that's working. Rewind. That works. Play. That's what was originally on the tape. There we go. So it's working. Okay, so a little more work than I had anticipated, but the mode switch is now back together and reinforced. I didn't expect to have to take it. I've never seen one where the plastic's actually fallen apart, but you see, when I was cleaning it with the Q-tip, cleaning all the gunge out of it, it was dirty. I was noticing that there was some threads from the end of the Q-tip were sticking inside the switch. That's why I went through and said, make sure you don't leave any, you know, it was, what it was the plastic from the bottom had cracked, and the switch itself was falling apart. So that would have probably ripped off the contacts as they rotated, because it was down a bit. So put some epoxy in the bottom to reinforce it. Looks like it's working, so we'll eject the tape. there we go. I'll throw this thing back together. I got a good working TV for free. Love it. Those that are wondering, yeah, the tuner's still working on it too. Making sure everything's working. So throw the back on it. Be done. I could probably get $100 for this thing easily for the retro gamers that are looking for a nice little CRT. But the fact that it has a VCR built in, that'd be one worth hanging on to, just because you never know when you come across a tape that you want to. I actually have a big one, right? I'll get to it one of these days. It's kind of buried under some other stuff, but it's a 27-inch Toshiba CRT with a VCR and a DVD player that was given to me a few years ago. Obviously, it's going to need service. As far as I know, it doesn't work. It's just one of these rainy day projects that when I get to it, I get to it. Here's what I'm getting at. You see, the tape end sensors are external. There's no shielding on them because the TV is normally dark from the cabinet. So when this thing was doing weird things, when I was testing the VCR after fixing the vertical, because that is probably all that was wrong with this, but when I was testing it and it was doing things like stopping and ejecting the tape and so forth on its own, made me think mode switch. Mode switch obviously needed cleaning because they all need cleaning, but that I'm sure wasn't the reason why. It was because extraneous light was affecting the infrared sensors. And even though there's not a lot, shouldn't be a lot of infrared light in the light here, these probably will respond to visible light as well. They're tuned for infrared, but I'm sure that visible light will affect them. Anyway, time for the back to go on. Back cover goes on pretty easy on this. Just slides on. Some of these sets were tough to get the backs on, but not this one. This one goes on pretty simple. And then 4 screws, 2 top and 2 bottom to hold the cabinet together. So there we have it, back together. Put the tape in, play. There we go. Forward search, play. Reverse search, play. We already know it records because I recorded this on it, so we know it records. If it can play, it can record. Eject. There you go. Got myself a nice little 14-inch combo VCR TV, and you know what? I don't think I've seen a better picture. I mean, this thing has got a fantastic picture on it. There's no degradation of that CRT. It just looks beautiful. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.